Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. Today, I am super excited to bring on my guest for today. I haven't met her yet in person, but the content we are going to be talking about is fantastic, and I'm so curious about it. So my guest today is Claire Candy Hough. She's a two-time #1 international best-selling author, radio and TV host, a Reiki Master and teacher, an inspirational speaker, and following her walk-in experience in January of 2003, she created her business, Angel Healing House, to help others connect to their eternal divine nature. So today we're going to be talking about angelic walk-ins and about walk-in experiences and about twin flames and all kinds of other great stuff that I've known about for a long time. I know many of you are new to all these spiritual terms, so I think this is going to be really interesting for all of you and interesting for me as well, because even though I've been around this terminology for a long time, there's always something to learn. So let's bring in Claire Candy. Hi, Claire. It's so great to see you, and I'm so excited for what Spirit brings in today, the two of us, and for humanity.
Absolutely. And I must say, it's wonderful to see you again, because I deeply know that this is not the first time that we have met. We have done this dance before in different incarnations, and it's wonderful to be with you again in this life, Victoria.
I know. How great is that? And I know there are some people I might, and it's like, oh, I know you.
Yes, it's like me. It's like with ET. It's like ET phone home. It's like, you find another, kindred spirit that you know very deeply, that this is not the first time that we've had this dance together.
Yeah, and probably not the last.
No.
No. But this particular round is incredibly exciting.
It is, because I've said to many clients, and on my Angel Healing House radio program, now in its 10th year, because I started in January of 2012, that each of us auditioned to be here at this time. And for people that tell me that they want a walk-in experience or that they want just out, it is such a privilege to be here after 26,000 years to get to this stage of actually transforming and shifting the planet into a planet of light. There are many souls that would have wanted to be in your position, but they didn't pass the audition of courage, of bravery, and conviction to the light, to hold the frequency. You did. So that's why, with many people asking to leave, I say, you don't realize what a privilege it is to be here at this very extraordinary, transformative time on planet Earth.
Yeah. And it's funny because people have said to me, oh, karma brought me back here. And I always laugh. I'm like, not me. I volunteered.
Yeah.
I volunteered for the role. And I put myself here intentionally. And of course, when I was younger, I had no idea that I put myself here intentionally. But now, well, like you, I'm a walk-in as well. So I know that it was a soul agreement that I had to be here, and I've got a lot of work to do. And at the same time, when you're working in the light, it is so extraordinary.
Yeah.
To be able to see the shift happening, and to see the awakening happening, and to see the light getting brighter and stronger, and the dark shadows being exposed. It's really extraordinary.
Yes, it is. It is. It's like when you start to fly your plane above the fog, above the third dimensional chaos and drama. It just, I've actually started to see the cities of light appearing on this earth. They are now held in the etheric, and they're being prepared for us to ascend to in the fifth dimension. And it's just glorious to see what is on the horizon for this planet as it's transforming into that Atlantis, into that time of prosperity and peace for everyone.
Yeah, it really is. And I try not to get frustrated with people when they sit and they rehash the pain and the suffering and the darkness and the what if this happens and the what if that happens, and they don't understand that by rehashing that story, they're actually slowing the process down.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, on my program on last Thursday, I spoke about the most important things at this moment are taking responsibility for every word, thought, feeling, and action that we have on the positive, on the world transform and transmute into that which is of the light, and to be fearless, because fear is always self-induced. It's never about anything that happens outside of ourselves. We create fear within ourselves, and it's fear that feeds the dark. And every time you put your emphasis on, and another thing that I said is to truly stop fearing for those people and your family and friends who've made different choices to yours, because your journey is not their journey. What the choices that they're making is perfection for their journey. And we must let go of trying to live somebody else's life. They will get on an energetic, indirect level. They will pick up your vibrational frequency. They will see how your positivity and your joy and your enthusiasm about being here on the planet, on some level, this will affect them. And then they get to the stage where they're guided. They're either or they're not, but many get to the stage where they look at you and they want to say, I want what you're having. And then we can open up a dialogue and guide them, and with all the spiritual information that we know. But until then, do not feel anybody who's made different health choices to you to as having a different narrative, because it is perfection for their journey.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things I've always said. People are striving for perfection and not understanding that the process itself is already perfect.
Yes, exactly. Everyone's on their path. And I have in my Angel Healing House healing sessions, one of the most important exercises as we go through is, from an angel's perspective, I help them to view their lives so that they can truly acknowledge that they wrote that person into the contract of their life, and even their contrasting characteristics. In my book, One True Home Behind the Veil of Forgetfulness, I speak about soul contracts and how even the most horrendous people in our lives that were abusive and, that we feel like we're a victim and we're blaming them, they were our best teachers. So it's so important to acknowledge nobody arrives in our life without our permission. Nobody. And so we acknowledge them in this exercise, with our higher self, with that person's higher self, and we thank that person for the extraordinary contrast they gave us to teach us invaluable lessons. And then their contrast, actually, they gave up part of their incarnation to play this awful abusive role in our life in many cases. And then we bless them, because we wouldn't want anybody to tell us how to walk our journey. So we bless their journey. And then when we get to that stage of having done those three, we can choose to finally release them from having any negative effect on ourselves, because we no longer choose to be right. We choose to be loving, joyful, accepting, tolerant, patient, forgiving, and at peace. And it just lifts the burden of illusion off of what we're hanging on to from a past perspective, so that we can only be in the present moment, where I say all the synchronicities, miracles, and magic occur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the things that I've discovered is one thing I want to share with you, as my audience knows, I'm now divorced. I'm divorced a couple of months ago. I separated last year, on the idea of contracts. So I love that you're talking about contracts, because we have soul contracts. And so my husband's soul came to me a year ago in August, told me that he was opting out of the ascension and that our soul contract was complete and it was time to let him go. And that it was interesting because the contract is complete was just, it made the decision quite simple of, oh, okay, contract is complete. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that people do come into our lives on a soul contract, and even on a collective soul contract. There are certain beings on the planet who are playing the role of the contrast. And that's how we learn to send them healing and send them gratitude and love and gratitude, love and gratitude, love and gratitude. And
Yeah.
for the role that they're playing, so that we can see the contrast, and then we can choose to no longer have the contrast in our lives on a soul level. And that's really huge to even be able to think that way. But I think that's one way to dismantle the darkness is to recognize that it does play a contracted role.
An extraordinary contrasting role. The five, when I walked in and I created Angel Healing House, this was in 2003. I walked in on January 11th of 2003. And only a short 5 months later did I create Angel Healing House. But when I created it, it was always created with 5 important tenets for people to follow. And once they follow these, they can no longer attach themselves to any anger, sadness, bitterness, resentment, regret, judgment, defensiveness, criticism, being a victim, blaming, all of those things. The first is to take responsibility for their life. And every person, place, and thing that's ever happened to them, they contracted for this to happen in order for them to learn their lessons. And we across the veil know, we meaning angels like myself and also spirit guides, we carefully monitor people's lives, and we know how important those lessons are to learn in and a lot of times they come in a hardship and adversity for us to really learn the lesson. So if we really take responsibility for our lives, there's no being a victim, and there is no blaming anything outside of ourselves. The second is to forgive, but we don't forgive by saying, I forgive you, which still apportions blame. We say, please forgive me, because we understand that we are all one. We are all one consciousness. And you, Victoria, are me. I am you. And so when we recognize the divinity in somebody else, we take responsibility, and we take that we on some level in any, and nobody comes in with a clear slate. In any incarnation, we have stolen, we have abused, we have done everything, in the grand scheme of things. So nobody is squeaky clean, and we come in to know that we are part of this huge soup of I am you, you are me. And so we say, please forgive me. We take responsibility for our part. And by doing this, then we own this. This is very much the Ho'oponopono prayer of Dr. Lou, who cured those patients in the mental hospital where he was by saying, please forgive me, over and over and over again. Please forgive me. The third tenet is non-judgment. The great learning tool is judging it, not that you be judged yourself. Allow somebody to walk their journey. Yes, you can provide them some insight and guidance from your experience, but sometimes a child needs to run on the sidewalk, even though we've told them, so that they can scrape their knee, so that they won't do it again. That's the lesson. That's the human lessons of learning in hardship and adversity. The third one is the gratitude and appreciation, as you mentioned. And the fifth is unconditional love. When we really embrace these 5 very important tenets that Angel Healing House has been built on and we're going, it's now almost 20 years since I established Angel Healing House. And when I walked in on that January 11th day, it was a very different world than it is now. It was totally third dimensional. And a very, very different vibrational frequency. But once somebody follows those 5 tenets, then they do take responsibility for their life, and they start to create their own reality, their own world of just unconditional love and gratitude, which are two of the highest forms of healing that we have available to us.
Mm-hmm. So what was your walk-in experience? What can you explain that, how that happened?
Okay, the reason that a walk-in happens is because the soul on the earth plane can't keep their life force energy going anymore. They choose to ask on a unconscious level. Now, a walk-in cannot in any way, shape, or form. I've had people say to me, oh, there's been so much trauma the last 2 years. I want out of this physical body. I want to leave and just escape, and I want a walk-in experience. This never happens on a conscious level. It always happens on an unconscious level when your higher self asks for this. Now, when I write about this in my book, I Am an Angelic Walk-in, the autobiography of Angel Ariel, I write about how destroyed the former soul was. She was actually a dearth of light, being abused for 26 years, 22 years married to a very abusive, mentally and emotionally controlling and manipulative bully. She lost her light. And she asked on an unconscious level, take me out. I can't do this anymore. And so we across the veil, angels and spirit guides, we know how important it is to learn our lessons, and they have to come in hardship and contrast a lot of times so that we really build character and our soul grows from it. But in the last, ever since 1987, since the harmonic convergence, it was so important for so many souls to hold high vibrational frequencies of light to help the planet ascend. And I, Angel Ariel, who is in the body now, I started visiting Claire Candy, the former soul of Claire Candy, about 2.5 years before the walk-in experience. And I said, we have heard you across the veil, and we want to offer you this. You can go home to God with honors. There is no shame and no judgment for not completing your contract here on earth. But if you avail your body for a higher spiritually advanced soul to come in and to be of service to humanity, then you can walk out and they can walk in. Now, if somebody asks this on a higher, their higher self asks this, Victoria, on, of course, a higher level, it's one thing to ask in theory, but it's another thing to go through it in practice. And it took me 2.5 years for her to mutually, with 100% agreement, allow for this to happen. Now, when this is mutually agreed upon, what happens is then they will decide on an intersection episode. So it could be during a surgery. It could be during a car accident, a plane accident. It could be during a surgery. Mine was during a deep meditation when the former soul, who knew nothing about spirituality and was very traumatized and very low energetically and vibrationally, she'd only started meditating like 6 weeks before, and she just couldn't get any more than 2 or 3 minutes without feeling the pain and the mind monkey chatter and all of that. And on this particular night, it was evening, it was about 5:30. She was living on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia, and she usually put on some music, but this time she just felt as if she didn't want to have music. She closed her eyes and she felt like a blanket had been put over her. When she woke up, she was very dizzy, felt very like she had vertigo, or I felt like I had vertigo. And I looked over at the clock. It was 11:11. I can't tell you where that time went from 5:30 to 11:11, but I felt very dazed. Whereas every time before, she'd only gotten maybe 5 minutes meditation before she felt all this terrible mind monkey chatter coming in. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Why am I going through this? So, and it was the next morning when she woke up, she realized she was living the wrong life. The clothes in the closet were not hers. I would not wear these things. Where she was living was a cockroach infested, termite infested home that the former soul's boyfriend, who was a con man, took the money from her divorce and her business and bought this place. And she was living in there. But of course, her vibrational frequency was so low not to be able to honor and respect herself. And I looked in the refrigerator, were all pizza boxes and fast food, and there was nothing to nourish my cells. To say that I was living the wrong life, because everything was created by the negativity and the lower dimensional frequency of the former soul. So then it was, I started to, and believe me, in 2003, when the internet was at its infancy, there was just no information around, but I was fortunate that I lived the characteristics of the walk-in experience before I was led to very significant people. My angelic family, who I am part of as Angel Ariel, we are called the Posse of Angels, and they led me to these people to explain to me what had happened to me. And it was different from hypochondria, where somebody hears about a dis-ease and then adopts the symptoms. I lived for 12 weeks the characteristics of the walk-ins that they use. A lot of walk-ins share these characteristics before I heard the term walk-in. For instance, I adopted the name Claire. The former soul, if somebody in her 47 years told her, called her Claire, she said, I hate that name. Don't ever call me that name. And with all the clairvoyancy, the clairaudient, the clairsentient, the claircognizant coming in, Claire suited me, and so I used the name Claire Candy. Walk-ins will often, as you know, change their name because they resonate better with it. They will often leave long-standing relationships because they drew this soul to themselves, and because they are a different personality, they're different character, they have different perceptions and attitudes, different tastes. They don't resonate with this person anymore, so they will often leave those relationships. They switch jobs, not from one receptionist job to another, but they'll often go into the healing arts as spiritual teachers, as alternative therapists and things like that. Your taste in foods, your taste in things change. The former soul was Jewish, and I wept now when I heard Celtic and Irish music. And a short time afterwards, my most significant past lives started to become aware of. And I was a healer in 14th century Scotland, which I write about in my book, One True Home, Behind the Veil of Forgetfulness. And I started to remember how much I loved that life and giving power to my serfdom. Now, if you're going to read the book, this is a spoiler, I'm sorry, but the church was not very happy with me empowering the serfdom in which I lived. And it not kept people away from the church, but they were empowered not to lean on the church. They knew that they were empowered by the creator, and they had their own channel of intuition. They didn't have to go to the church, and nobody tithed anymore. The coffers were empty. And so they trumped up a charge against me as a witch, and they had me burned at the stake. Mm-hmm. All these past lives came back into my life. And that's what prompted me to write this book of what happens to us as we go on that journey, on the arc between our physical life, and then what do we do across the veil, the journey that we all get to take. Those that choose can have a welcome home party. My mother-in-law, who recently passed 5 months ago, she comes into me. She said, Candy, she said, you wouldn't believe it's not just people from this incarnation. She said, but reams and reams of people from former incarnations are coming in and they're welcoming me back home. And she was just so giddy. And she says, I have to go now. There's just so many people that I'm the star and people want to meet with me. It's just so beautiful, So, and then we go to our life's review, which is like a holographic view of the first breath we took as a physical to when we crossed over. And then we meet with the council, the great white brotherhood. We meet with the ascended masters and the archangels, not for them to judge us. There is no judgment, unlike this planet across the veil. They're only interested in how did you go in your lessons? What did you experience? What did you learn? And we open up our book of life in the Akashic record. All the information from our past lives is held, and they are so loving and they are so sweet. So this was my experience when I walked in, and I knew that I was here not for my own personal journey, because as an angel, I had already given up my free will. And certainly being in a twin flame relationship, I give up my twin flame to my free will to be in that, to bring forth that mission. So it's more for me to be of service to humanity in the highest way that I can be for this planet.
So when you had that walk-in experience, how obviously you felt different when you woke up. The personality self knew something was very different.
Yes, I knew immediately. I looked in the closet. I said,
Right.
who would wear these? These are not my clothes. The food in the refrigerator, I would never eat. Sort of the fast food and the sodas and things that contained artificial coloring and flavoring. It just made me nauseous. It made me feel sick. The surroundings, because I was so energetically. I come from the 12th dimension. That's where I come from. I come from the angelic realm. The disparity between what was surrounding me and my vibrational frequency was so disparate that I actually felt ill.
Yeah, and your body can't handle any of the food and the toxins and all the stuff that's here. So how long did it take for your personality self to realize that you were a walk-in? Because you obviously woke up and you're like, oh my gosh, everything is
right.
wrong in my life.
Right.
We figure out what it was.
Walk-ins don't come with a handbook tied around their toes saying you've had a walk-in experience.
Right.
We're dazed and we're confused. Many walk-ins bump around for many years before they even heard the term walk-in. And even though the internet was in its infancy, and there was very little information, especially in New Age shops and things like that about walk-ins, that I was led 3 months after to an international seer, a clairvoyant on the Gold Coast in Surfers Paradise. He was renowned. He was renowned in 2003 for the work that he did. And a friend who I befriended, a lady who was a manager in a bookstore. And I told her that something had happened to me. She was a fairy. She was very intuitive. She said, I'm not sure what happened to you, but I know somebody who could help you. Anyway, she led me to his name. I called up. She said, book whenever you can. He's impossible to get. It might be a year out, but he's the one you should go to. Anyway, I called up. And the gentleman on the other end of the phone said, I want to make an appointment. I don't care where it is. He said, you must be the luckiest lady in the world. I just hung up from somebody. Nobody ever cancels with Patrick. Somebody just canceled. Can you be here in an hour? And I said, yes. And so when I walked in and Patrick came out of his office at the back, his eyes were as big as saucers. He took my hands and he said, welcome back, dear lady. He said, you must be very confused. Let me make you a tea. and tell you what has happened. He sat me down and he said, you have had a walk-in experience. You are an angel. You come from not this realm, and you are here to do a very important service to humanity. And at one stage, he said, this is not the first dance we've done together. He said, I am of the dragon realm. And he said, dragons and angels are the best of friends. We've come back yet again in this lifetime to help each other. And it was so sweet, Victoria. He showed me his hands. He said, I am but a lowly dragon. I'm just here to channel information to people. He said, but look at your hands. They contain the wisdom of the ages, and you're going to impart this to people in such a way that it's going to open up their hearts and it's going to change the world. I didn't tell him. I was bucketing down tears as he told me of what happened in the last 3 months and where I'd come from and what had happened to me. Now, it just so happens that this little fairy friend said, if Patrick isn't available, I have another friend, John Chamberlain, who often goes to the Philippines. He's a healer. He goes to the Philippines where they extract things from the body, and he says he just came back, and make an appointment with him. He might be able to see you earlier than Patrick. So I made an appointment for him actually 2 days after this surprise meeting with Patrick. So there I am. I arrive in John Chamberlain's home. I knock on the door. This tall man, like 6'6", white hair, all dressed in white, answers the door. I walk in and he said, oh my God. He said, I've never seen anybody with such an entourage of angels. He said, I can't close the door. They just keep coming in. It's like name tags, like in a conference, following you around. He said, do you know that you're an angel? He said, do you know that you've had a walk-in experience? This was within 2 days of Patrick. Now, just because somebody tells you this doesn't mean it to be so. But I'd already lived all the characteristics that many walk-ins often go through. And I let this settle, that this was exactly what had happened to me. And then I learned Reiki within an extremely short amount of time, my 2 disciplines in the Asui traditional healing method of Reiki, and also the Seshem Sekum, the Egyptian, more cosmic form of Reiki. And then the next day I got a business license, and then magically people just started to be drawn into my healing practice, my Angel Healing House healing practice. So I was very fortunate that it took a very short amount of time for me to, what I often say is to get on my twin flame game. Because many people bump around for a long time and they're just lost.
Right. So you talk about your twin flame. How did you meet this person? And I know we had talked earlier about how one, people need to stop asking for the drop-in experience, and also about twin flames. So tell me about your twin flame, and then why this might not be something people will want to be asking for. What the difference is between the twin flame and a soulmate.
Okay, there's a huge difference between twin flames and soulmates. If you can imagine, when we live in our one true home across the veil, we are in it's like a great grape cluster in the sky, and we are with those people who are most like us in energetic signature. These are people who we travel with lifetime after lifetime to help us learn our lessons. They play roles, which sometimes we like, sometimes they're abusive, but they help us to learn our lessons. Again, in my book, One True Home, I talk about those soul contracts that we make. Okay, so soulmates come back to help us to create something. Sometimes the only thing it could be is creating children. Sometimes it could be creating a project or an endeavor, a business, or to find closure on some unfinished business from a past incarnation. Now, soulmates are very electric, and in the past 20 years, through my Angel Healing House healing practice, I've heard from so many people to say, I said, what was this person like when you met them? Well, they were this, they were that. but there was something that told me not to step forward, but I had to step forward anyway. There's a great electricity in soulmate relationships that draw you in order to reflect something inside of you that still needs to be addressed. And that's why they come in with irritation a lot of times, not all the times, irritation, agitation, drama. They push your buttons. And if we don't understand that they're just reflecting something inside of us, because you can't have that in front of you, which you do not have inside of you, then if we don't understand this, we'll say, I'll show you, I'll just go find somebody else. And often it's not only identikit of that other person, but it comes in 10 times worse for us to really get the lesson that this is already inside of us. And once we understand, turn the mirror back on ourselves, we start to work on ourselves, to release what those things were that were still inside of us that drew this person to ourselves. Well, those, in a nutshell, are soulmate relationships, and they are absolutely beautiful. They're beautiful, they're necessary. Twin flames, on the other hand, and also soulmates still are working out their karma. They are still working out their karma. They are still working on their the belief and programming from their ancestral and generational line. They still are filled with anger, sadness, bitterness, resentment, regret, judgment, victimization, blame, all of those things. Okay, so twin flames, they are of a different frequency because they have already, outside of the reunion, they've already resolved all their karma. There is no karma anymore. They've already resolved all of those anger, sadness, bitterness, all of that. They no longer are triggered. They're no longer reactive. They know that they're here for a higher purpose. And twin flames have been very important on this planet, like the relationship that I have with my beloved husband, twin flame Pete, and probably the most important twin flame relationship on this planet was Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, because it is the perfect union, as an example, between the divine masculine that has gotten that balanced perfectly and the divine feminine. And once they come together, then it is beautiful. It is beautiful love. But there's been so much misinformation about these reunions on the planet from people who have not had their own twin flame relationship. And they've been overly romanticized, which actually negates the main reason that they come back and they come together. Now, the reason people need to stop asking for their twin flame, because the vibrational frequency on the planet has been so drastically low on this planet, it did not support the twins coming together. And by a twin being across the veil, they can actually help us better than if they were in this life and the twins never would meet each other. It was just not destined for them to meet on the physical incarnation. And so being across the veil, they can help us better. But there's another reason why people should stop asking for their twin flame, because the reason why this doesn't happen is because one or both of the twins is not prepared for the sacrifices that this twin flame union, and this is these people that are romanticizing it. Yes, there's great love between us, but it's not just about that romantic love. There is so many sacrifices that you have to give up being in this union, because it's always a triad with the creator at the top, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and creator is driving this twin flame mission. So you give up your free will. Pete and I, for the last almost 20 years together, since 2003, we're like mystic wanderers. You know, we in 2007 we were told, okay, sell your beautiful beach home in Australia, where we thought we were going to be two old farts, excuse the expression, you know, living on the beach forever. I mean, that's idyllic on the Sunshine Coast near Noosa. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But in order to complete our mission or continue it, we had to go to the States. So sell your beach home, go to California, go to the States where you know nobody. You're giving up your financial support system. You're giving up your emotional support system. And at the beginning of the recession, that was in 2007. And we knew, deep knowing, that when you're on this mission, the highest ways to serve is by saying yes. Creator says jump, we say how high. So people need to understand also, Victoria, by continually asking to be with their twin flame and pining and pleading and begging and crying, they're putting themselves in lack and scarcity, and they're saying to the universe that you don't have your twin flame, instead of already affirming that they are a part of your life. Across the earth. And our twin flame has been knocking on your door and aching to be a part of your life, to help you to find this amazing love relationship, to help you in your creative projects, to help you to stop your addictions or to make healthier choices and to really, truly, fully love yourself. This is why I created the Twin Flame Energetic Reconnection sessions for those people whose twin flame is across the veil. I have to tell you about this amazing session that this client had with me this week. She came to me because she was so distraught after so many years of not finding her twin flame. Anyway, at the beginning of the session, she says to me, I keep seeing the numbers 369, 369, 369. I can't figure it out. And I don't know what it means. Anyway, in the session, from an angel's perspective, from my perspective, I take people, their higher self, up, and we walk the timeline back through their life to see when they were with their twin flame. It's making me cry. And we stopped, when I say we, I always mentioning the posse of angels, my angelic family. We stopped in the 1900s. And we, the client and I, because she was very, very psychic, telepathic and clairvoyant, she saw herself dressed in Victorian garb with the high neck and the puff sleeves and these beautiful rosebuds on her outfit. And we both gasped because it became very clear who she was aligned with in those days. She was romantically involved with Nikola Tesla. And when she saw this relationship that they had, it just made her cry. The tears came to my eyes. The overwhelming love between them was just unbelievable. And to quote Nikola Tesla, if you only knew the magnificence of the 369, then you would have the keys to the universe. And this client wrote to me afterwards. She sent me an email. She said, it's so freeing. I can't thank you enough, because now I know I don't need to think about the uncertainty of ever meeting my twin flame, as I now concentrate on having them here already with me in the etheric, and we could work on myself, we can work on my projects and come back what I came back to fulfill, to do, and serve in the highest ways. She said, thank you, you have given me an extraordinary gift. Now, while everybody won't be aligned and their twin flame is Nikola Tesla, the overwhelming feeling of being reunited on the etheric with your twin flame, it just takes you from lack of not having them to knowing that love never dies. And this is a part, and always will be a part, your divine complement of being with you.
That's beautiful. Well, I definitely want to have a session with you, because I let go of my husband, and what I call him my husband now, but what part of what I was hearing is that, and I know who my twin flame is on the etheric realm, but I don't know any physical experiences I've had with my twin flame.
Yeah.
So I kind of have the opposite of knowing, who this individual is energetically. And so I've asked, I'm like, is he ever going to be on the planet? But am I going to have a twin flame experience? And I've been told that yes, this person's coming into my life in 2023, and that he's actually not on the planet right now, which I find really interesting.
Right.
And no, it's not that he's not. It's funny. It's not that he hasn't been born yet. I'm not going to go shack up with a newborn baby. Not even go there, but that it's going to either a walk-in experience or something. I don't know what that looks like, but there's some way that my twin flame is going to appear into my life.
Yeah, and you won't, and don't even put any energies. What I'm hearing into, in any energies into how and trying to figure out how that's going to happen, because it's interesting when I after I met with Patrick and this gentleman John Chamberlain. I felt compelled to write a decree, and I wrote down, not I want or desire, because you'll always be wanting and desiring. I wrote down, thank you for my twin flame relationship and marriage, because I like the ceremonies and rituals of marriage. And then I was living in a 1+1 bedroom somewhere, and the pen automatically wrote, I live in a comfortable home near the ocean. Then I wrote the characteristics of my twin flame. And it was like a decree I was writing, and I slept with it under my pillow, and I read it out every morning and night. And within 6 weeks, he was etherically around me. And 2 months later, at Come As Your Favorite Rock Star party, I went as Stevie Nicks, had very curly hair then. And the only Elvis out of 100 people turned up. And 5 days later, he asked to marry me. He actually wanted to ask me after 3 days, but he thought he would wait for 5. I said, what was the difference between 3 and 5 days, Pete? And he said, on the 5th day, he said, I felt the hand of God on my back, easing me forward, saying, because he kept on saying, I just met this woman. How could I ask her to marry me? And God said, just ask her to marry you, and everything will be all right, and everything will be more extraordinary than you can ever imagine and fall into place. And then 2 months to the day we were married then. But and we've been on our twin flame mission ever since. A thing that I wanted to bring up, which is very important before our time runs out, is, and I want to point this out between Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. They came to the planet to show, yes, extraordinary, deep love, more actually deeper than romantic love or romanticized love. The service to God Creator, and coming together in that union wherever 2 or more are gathered in that name, sort of heavenly hosts and miracles happen. Their path was not particularly easy.
Right. Not at all. Yeah.
And not at all. And being in this union is not very easy, just like people who want a walk-in experience, they have no idea how harrowing it is to go from a 12th dimensional frequency where I am this over 7 foot tall shard of light. I don't have big bosoms. I don't have wide hips. I am just this tall shard of divine white light, and to be squished into a 5-3. Now, I'm very happy that she provided me with this physical vehicle to do the work I'm doing, but to be squished into a 5-3 body is something that is no easy feat, and I have to deal with at every single moment of my physical existence. It's very harrowing to in the beginning, when you don't know what's happened to you, and people see you and they say, there's something very strange about you. You're acting so different. You don't resonate with people anymore. You don't, and you don't know what's happened to you. So, especially for those people who are asking to have this experience, it's emotionally so disturbing in the beginning. People look at me and they say, oh, your life is so glamorous, or so fun or exciting. It took years to be grounded into this body. Oh, an interesting thing that happened when I walked in the 12th dimension, I don't eat. And so I walked into her anorexic body. She was living on 2 packs of cigarettes and just coffee, basically. And on top of that, I stopped eating for days and weeks and weeks. And I became emaciated. And the posse of angels, they planned an intervention for me so that that I would be presented with something that would shock the hell out of me. Um, just briefly to explain, um, I had come into some money. Thank God the posse of angels arranged it, that it did not fall into the hands of this con man who the former soul was with. And I had this sum of money, and I found a financial advisor who had two offices, one 5 minutes away and one an hour away. The day before our meeting, which was supposed to be 5 minutes away, he said, it's an emergency. I have to be at my other office. Can you travel an hour? This was not important. This was not an important meeting. And something told me to go an hour. I went an hour. I met with this man. It didn't yield very much, but what it yielded was it was across from a new shopping center, and the former we love clothes. So I saw this new shopping center with the flags waving, getting my attention, and I walked in. And in Australia, in the shopping centers, in the basement, they'll have the grocery stores, and very much like in Europe, they'll have the fruit and vegetable person, the butcher, they'll have the Medicare office, post offices, and that's all that's in the basement. I went to push number one to go to the first level, and something pushed my hand down and pushed the basement. I went down to the basement, and across the hall from me, across this long corridor, was a sign that said "Your Divine Destiny," and it had an arrow going around a corner, and it had Tibetan flags. Around this corner was the entrance with Tibetan flags on it. When I walked in, it was a new age shop, and the girl behind the counter said, "Oh, hello." She says, "You're here for the reading. Yeah, the person Mirabelle is going to do your reading, and she'll be out in a moment." At that moment, a very large, hefty woman came out from a back room, and she called me over to sit down. She looks at me and she goes, "Oh my God," she said, "you're not from you're not from Earth." She said, you're an angel." And I said, "Yes, I know I'm an angel." She said, "You," and then she pulled some cards. She said, you're gonna be reunited with your twin flame." I said, "Yeah, I know." And she said, "But that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen on the Earth realm because you are so emaciated, he will never be able to see you." He says, "You don't have an ounce of fat on you. And this man, he likes some meat on his women." He said, "You need to go home and eat. This is of the gravest importance. Otherwise, this is not going to happen." And I was very shaken. And I said, "Is there anything else?" She just looked at the cards and she said, "No, once you meet your twin flame, everything's going to fall into place. Everything will be fine." And then she looked at me. She said, you must go home and eat." So I took out my wallet to pay her, and she went, "Oh, no." She said, "There's no charge for this." I went home and I started to eat and stuff food in my mouth. And it was 2 months later that at that Come As Your Favorite Rock Star party, we met each other. And then the twin flame journey started. And I write about this in my book, I Am an Angelic Walk-In, the autobiography of Angel Ariel, the magical way we met and our magical way we came together.
Wow. That is such an incredible story.
Yeah. It's just the miracles and the magic that have happened on our journey in the last 20 years, the lives that we've touched, the people's lives that have touched us. Before we run out of time, I just want to tell everybody, you are such a divine, powerful, multidimensional, sovereign being. And this is not your first time. This is not your first go around. You are courageous, you are brave, and you have all the spiritual tools you need to get through this great awakening. You may be the most spiritual car mechanic or babysitter, or you might be a spiritual leader. Whatever you choose to do it with your joy and this enthusiasm in you that you are a powerful, sovereign, multidimensional being, and be the example for others. and hold that high vibrational energy inside of yourself, because on either a direct level or an indirect level, you are being of extraordinary service to the planet. And we thank you. We thank you for coming back. It is no easy feat to be in a human body at this time of ascension, but the light has already won, or else we wouldn't be seeing the last crumbs of the dark being swept away. And hold fast. As I said, I see those cities of light, and they're just hanging there in the etheric, ready to drop into that fifth dimensional as we come up to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And that 1,000 years of peace and prosperity that we've been promised is right on our horizon.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much. I was going to ask you what I wanted to close out with, and that was the perfect thing to close out with.
I read your mind.
Yeah. Oh, that was just beautiful. And those of us who are here, and I told you earlier, and I did explain to my audience once before that I'm what's called a drop down. I consider it's kind of the same thing, and the learning how to adjust to having a human body and the personality experience and trying to work with it. It is not easy.
It's not easy. I'll just also tell your audience that there is an extreme difference between earth angels and an angel like myself who has walked in. And there are also star seeds who walk in as well, and also spiritually advanced spirit guides who walk in as well. But the greatest difference for somebody who calls himself an earth angel and an angel like myself who walks in is a person who becomes an earth angel is still the original physical soul that was born into that body. And they take on consciously adopting those angelic qualities like generosity, loving, kindness, forgiving, non-judgment, all of those things. Earth angels will still have their karma to work through, and they will still have to negate the belief and the programming from their ancestral and generational lines. But a person who is an angel, who has walked in, I already transcended the birth and death wheel. I am not here for personal reasons. I negated everything, and I gave up my free will before I came into this body. And so I'm here more to be of service to humanity rather than for my own personal journey. And an earth angel still has their free will, but I do not have my free will. My free will is the will of the Creator, because I will to will the Creator's will. And there is no greater service, as far as I am concerned, to be of service to the divine.
It's really beautiful. And thank you for that clarification, because I think there is some of that confusion too, and what the difference is.
Yeah. So it is an extraordinary time here on planet Earth. And I wiggle with excitement to see so many of us, whether you call yourself a light worker or starseed or a walk-in or an earth angel, whatever label you put on yourself, we are all divine. We are all sovereign and powerful and multidimensional beings. We will, as we're being prepared now, some people say we're in the fourth dimension and being prepared to fully go into the fifth dimension. We're being prepared to be shown, and because we're next to move to, because the locations that we've been holding light in, it's past its use by date, and also what we've been doing has been good for the planet. Not to say that we're not going to be doing any part of this anymore, but many of us are going to be stepping into roles where we could be of greater service and have a wider audience to be able to speak to and to be able to service. So that's an exciting thing as well.
Yeah, and there's new platforms and new technologies that have not been made available, that exactly. We know are coming in order for us to do this work on a much grander scale.
Yes, exactly. But be here, be now, be present, and know that just like the magician card, the posse of angels are showing me, we have all the tools that we need to alchemize our lives and to create the most beautiful heaven on earth for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, it has been such a delight to meet you in this realm.
In this realm. Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. Remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. We will create a world where peace, harmony, freedom, and prosperity for all becomes the reality. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free. Mwah.